Hey guys, how's it going? I am here with Jeremy from the post rock project Moon and Snow. And I am so excited to hear more about what you do, Jeremy. We spoke a little before this, but for context for everyone else, tell me a little bit about what you do and what Moon and Snow is.
Yeah, no. Well, thanks for having me, Celia. Appreciate it. Moon and Snows, it's a solo project that I formed after I had kids. And up until I had kids, I was playing in local bands. I was playing in like a kind of alternative rock band for a while,
Mm-hmm.
and and after I had kids, I needed to kind of channel some of that focus, but in a way that was able to be done in headphones. And so the first Moon and Snow album is really electronic, and it really moved in that direction. And it allowed me to kind of focus on songwriting as opposed to like instrument performance. And that was something that I really wanted to do building up to this anyway. Um, and then as time has moved on, my kids have gotten older. I've kind of re-embraced that rock element, the guitar based side of things, and that's where I'm going. So Moon and Snow is I call it like my catch all. I can do anything that I want in the project because it's just me, and um, and currently I'm embracing that post rock kind of ethos and really driving towards that, and you'll hear that in the next album.
Awesome. Let's get the scoop on the album, and then we'll kind of work backwards from there. So, I know that you write and self produce everything. What is the vibe of the next album?
Yeah, so it's very different from the first album. It picks up a lot of it picks up where I left off in my previous band. A lot of the songs I had started in that band and just kind of like tabled until now, and so it's very intricate guitar, a lot of post rock, some kind of hard rock, maybe even metal influences, but I try to not bring in too much of that, and lots of vocal harmonies. Really trying to just to dive into that side of things and work on these intricate guitar pieces that I've had kicked around for a long time.
That's really cool. So I know that your music is very guitar driven. Where does that come from? Where's that influence come from?
Yeah, so I mean, growing up, I was a big heavy metal guy. I played in heavy metal bands, and as I got older, I didn't really feel um, like that was satisfying me enough creative creatively, and but like the that guitar side of things was really like heavy metal. I think is very performance oriented, very like um, it there's like that whole technical proficiency in performing your instrument, and that as I kind of transitioned into I want to be more creative with things. Um, that carried through with me. And the funny thing, I was thinking about this before this interview, and I can really trace kind of that jump to one moment where I had a friend who just he just challenged me. He said, go write a song that's different than anything you've ever written. Just just don't have any rules except for that rule. And so I sat down and I wrote a song that I'm super proud of, and it's actually going to be on my next album. And that really kind of brought together a lot of influences that I didn't know were kicking around inside my head. And and now years later, I can point back to that and say like, wow, that was really like a defining moment for me.
That's really cool. So, I know that we just kind of got into write something different, and I know that you're trying to be eclectic with this project. You could kind of do whatever you want. I love that that kind of gives you the freedom within the genres, but what does your writing process kind of look like if you're going to go and start on a new piece? How do you go about it? Is it starting with the melody? Is it starting with building? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, so it's this guitar right here. Usually, I usually pick up my acoustic, and and I usually just kind of like I've got a million recordings in my phone of just little bits that I'm like, oh yeah, I like that. That's resonating with me. Let's remember that. And go back and kind of work to develop it. So if there are times where like I'll sit down and I'll get inspiration and just be like, all right, I'm inspired and I'm just going to keep running with it. And the song will come together really quickly. And there are other times where I'll really wrestle with a piece and I have to put it away. And I've found that when I'm writing, if I'm really wrestling with something and it's not coming together, it's best to walk away, especially if I really like what I have so far. I don't want to force it. And because when I forced it in the past, it's come together, but maybe I'm as I reflect on it, I'm like, oh, I rushed that transition or that didn't feel smooth. But yeah, coming from my background, I'm basically a guitar guy when I start to write. I do sit down at the piano sometimes, and I'll work out melodies and stuff like that. And I mean, I like to sing, so I'll just drive around, and if I get a melody that I'm like, oh, that would really work on its own, I'll record that and I'll try to build a chord structure around it.
I like that you don't like to force things. I'm very similar, especially with editing music videos, because like, there's one side of it where it's like, oh my god, I want to get this done, or like, I have a deadline or something like that. But sometimes, like, for me, I've had to have like that moment where I'm like doing something completely different, and then I'm like, that was the idea that came to mind, and I was like, that's the thing that I needed for this video for it to like be successful. So like, I try to like give myself time on the back end to have that aha moment after shooting, because if I just go and do one and then the other, the story might not have that little, I like to say the paprika, like you don't have the paprika.
Yeah.
It's not salt and pepper, like, it could be very, very salt and pepper, but like it doesn't have that paprika.
Yeah. No. And that brings up, I was recently, my son got into animation. My son's 8, and he just has an app on the iPad that he was animating with, and he was doing flip books before. And he wanted a scooter or something. And I told him, hey, you make an animated music video for one of my songs, and
that's awesome.
Yeah, we wrote up a contract, and he. And I kind of wanted to like say like this is a serious thing, but still like I'm your dad, so we can be really chill about it. But he got to that point where he was burned out and he was like creatively exhausted, and he's an 8-year-old kid. And I just told him like, okay, so like we set a date for it, but I'm like, let's just relax and let's talk it through. And what I really wanted him to kind of explore in that, and it was interesting because I was like reflecting about his experience, as a parallel to mine, in that like the creativity is really what we're going for here, right? We want to capture that creative spark, and the deadlines and all of that, those are important. But if you don't have the paprika, then it's not coming together, right? And so we backed off and we just let him kind of chill. He would take time off from the video, and he came through, and he came through with like some really creative ideas, and it was really impressive. So yeah,
I really like that you're teaching him all of these things at such a young age, because these are things that I'm still figuring out for myself now, because I worked myself like a crazy person for like, for a number of years where like, you have the deadlines and like people need it, and it needs to go out on social, and it needs to do all of these things, and it like, yes, it does, like, but it's hard to be I guess creative in that very structured corporate mindset, or just like,
I agree.
So it's really cool that you're taking the time to like apply your like, learned knowledge about how to keep the creativity flowing to your son, especially at such a young age. That's awesome.
Yeah, and on this second album that's coming out, it's really I've kind of embraced that too, right? During COVID, I joined another project, and I tabled this, and I said, let me focus on this other project. And it really became a focus at the time where to this project's detriment, to the detriment of Moon and Snow. But the benefit has been that I've slowed things down, and really like I have this acoustic song on this acoustic song on the next album where I wrote it a while ago. It's one of my favorite songs I've ever written, and I was like, this song deserves my not freaking out about it and just slowing down and doing it right. And I did. I slowed it down, and it was painful, and it was like, many takes where I'm like, I flubbed that note, and I'm just gonna go away for the day, and I'll come back tomorrow, do a little more practicing, and really just try to nail my takes. And I did. I feel like I got the performance that I wanted, and that was the benefit of slowing down. So the cost, of course, is that now it's been taking forever to come out, but 2 months, I think.
Alrighty. 2 months. I'm glad that you got the performances that you like, but I want to kind of take a step towards the fact that you're also self-producing. So because you're doing the whole process, like, how does, making the post end of it, how's the transition from getting those takes into starting to work on the post end of it?
Yeah, that's been a challenging experience historically. I think that there's, I'm hoping to build up a studio. I'm hoping in the future to build up a studio where I could go find people who don't necessarily have access to a studio. I bring them in. I'm like, hey, I can work with you. I'd like to, step into kind of a producer role, but not necessarily. Just like, hey, you don't have means to record. I have that. Let's do this. And so slowly over time, I've been building that. So when I recorded the first album, I didn't have like a good audio interface, and I had some technical problems with that. And that made the quality of sonically, the quality of the songs that I produced, they were slightly inferior. And I did some post processing to try and clean that up. And I bought a better digital analog interface. And then I released an EP, and that really moved the quality up. But I was still kind of intermingling things where I would record a song, and then I would go immediately into mixing the song. And I was really not kind of segmenting those parts of my brain where I'm saying, like, here I'm an artist and here I'm a producer. And I really focused on that here on this album. I said, like, first I'm going to demo. And thank God I demoed, because I had some really rough ideas that just weren't working. And I was really able to refine that. And then after I demoed, I said, okay, so now I'm going to move into the performance phase, capture the performances. And now I've got, 9 songs that I'm going to move forward and start mixing, and just kind of shift gears, hang the guitar up, hang the bass up, and just like bring the laptop and the headphones and move into it. So I think that there is that. That's what I've learned, is that I think it's going to be better to move into that phase and continually kind of update the quality of the equipment I have, along with my skill set. Right, each release, I might look back and say, there was something on that release where it didn't quite measure up, but I learned from it. And as long as I'm learning, the next time I step up to the plate, I'm going to improve. And eventually, then making awesome sounding records all the time and helping out other people. That's the ideal anyway.
I like that you mentioned having the artist hat and the producer hat, because like that is something that I struggle with all the time. Even today, like, I'm running 5 minutes late. Like, if I had to figure out how to get a hold of each person and be like, oh my God, I am 5 minutes late, rather than having my assistant reach out and tell each person that I'm 5 minutes late, it would detract from the conversation that I'm having with you right now. Because, it takes you out of the moment of being that creative. And, I need to be able to like listen to what you're saying and respond with questions. So I'm glad that you made a point of that, because I feel like one of the biggest issues that artists have is that they're wearing too many hats. Like they're especially like if they're producing themselves, they're just trying to get to the end of a song, or they're trying to make a piece of content, but they're like trying to set up a camera, and they're trying to do the thing, and they're trying to like think of all of the steps, but they're also trying to play a song at the same time. And it's a lot of different brain cells that you need to use at once. So I'm glad you figured out a system that works for you.
Yeah, we'll see, right? That's but I feel pretty confident about it. But I think you're right, and I think one thing that where the most challenging thing for me as like an independent artist is the marketing, And I think that's something where you're really excelling. Like you've got your socials dialed in, and you've got, you know, you're bringing all that together in a way that I'm like, oh, I'm watching you and I'm learning from you. So you're inspiring. I think
Thank
that's,
you.
I appreciate that.
I really appreciate it because I'm trying to kind of model what people can do. Because what I've learned is creative people need to be shown things. Like not that they can't figure out things, but if you see what you're supposed to be doing, then you have more of an idea of the steps you can take. Or if someone like, because if I told you, hey, you need to do XYZ, like, you know, you need to post this many things, or you need to like create this kind of thing, you might not have a background in video, or maybe you're not consuming a bunch of content on, like, you know, the social media apps, and like, you know, you're not informed on what's working and what's not working. But if you see what's working for someone, or a direction that it's working for them, it gives you a little bit of like a like how do I explain it? Like, you know, it's like taking the fast pass line at Disney World, if that makes sense. Like, you're still online and you still have to wait, but at least you have a direction and you can go past some of the testing.
Exactly. It's like a choose your own adventure fork in the road. And instead of taking eight options, you've got like 3 that you choose from now. And
exactly.
Yeah. It makes a lot of sense. It really does.
So that's what I've been trying to do. So the fact that came back to me, like, thank you.
Good. Yeah, good. I'm glad, because 100%. I see the stuff you're doing out there, and I'm like, yes, that's good.
Thank you. So now I'm going to ask you like my big question of the interview, and I ask this to everybody. For someone that would be starting out in music now, whatever direction you want to take this, you can take this. What would be your advice to them?
Wow, that's yes, that
it's
is
a big question. That's why I say pick a direction that means something to you.
Yeah, I think I have a lot of experience with this with my children right now, because they're both musically inclined. And I think it's really important to find what resonates with you. I think that is where, you know, for me, I bought my first guitar, and it sat, and I didn't really play it because I wasn't inspired, and I was learning guitar chords, and it just didn't work. The way that I was trying to teach myself guitar was not working. And then I just learned some songs, and I was like, oh, this is how you play songs. And it was the songs that really brought me together, not like, here's a G chord, you know. And that's a microcosm of it, where I was learning guitar wrong, and I suffered for a year and a half before I really embraced it and found my muse in it. And I think that's really what I would tell anybody is, you know, if it's singing, if you're a singer, that's great. Oh, look, thumbs up. If you're a singer, go for it, right?
Where did that come from?
Oh, I think it's my Mac, actually. My yes. I think I can do stuff like this, maybe. I don't mean to derail the interview. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. But
sorry, you were saying if you're a singer.
Exactly. Yes. If you're a singer, find the things that motivate you. Like, my daughter is singing right now, and she's really moving into kind of like musical theater and stuff like that. And that's something that never resonated with me, but she loves it, and good for her. I'm going to go see these plays that she does, and I'm going to cheer her on, because she's a great singer and she's working it. And she's found that way that connects, you know, with her soul. And that's what I would say. Like, if something's not working for you, if something's not bringing you some sort of joy, then it's probably not going to be something where you're going to want to spend your time.
I totally resonate with that, because, you know, I've tried to play a number of musical instruments over the years, and I think now I realized, hey, maybe I should have been a keys player. And then I'm like, all right, like when I go, I'm like finding something fun and new each time. So I think that's good to find, you know, I like how you phrased it, your muse within something.
Yeah.
So, Jeremy, where can people follow you? That's a very important question.
That's true. I'm on Instagram and Threads. I believe on both of those I'm at Moon and Snow Band. And I recently got rid of Twitter. But I moved to Threads, which is where I found you, and there's a thriving. Yeah, it was time. There's a thriving community on Threads. Threads has reinvigorated my my zeal for social media and to market my music and to find and connect with people. So Instagram, Threads. I'm also on Blue Sky and Mastodon, but I am very new to those apps and I'm not very active. But I believe it's all the same handle at Moon and Snow Band.
Very cool, very cool. Jeremy, you were a pleasure to hang out with today. I appreciate you
Likewise.
coming on here, and like I love how like you're kind of instilling some really great things into like your children's creative process, because the lessons that you're teaching, both with the contracts and like the fact that you're like, take a step back, reinvigorate the creativity. Like those are very important things that I feel like are lost to a lot of people these days of like, go to work, do your work, get it done society. So,
Exactly.
I'm glad that we were able to speak about that and echo that for everyone else.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
and yeah.
thank you for being on. And I
Great
will,
conversation. Really appreciate it.
oh, 100%. I'm very, 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 very into this conversation. I wish that I had a little more time. But thank you to everyone tuning in. Make sure to check out Moon and Snow, and I will see you guys at the next interview.
Bye, Celia. Bye, guys.